Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. I'm John George, the BRF President and CEO. For you who don't know of the BRF, we were founded in 1986. We're a 501c3 private not-for-profit organization with a mission to diversify and grow our region's economy. And it's always been that mission since 1986. We have an all-volunteer board, 17 individuals, business and civic leaders who are, in my mind, great leaders of this community. One housekeeping note, at the end of the broadcast, we're going to have question and answers submitted. If you'll look on your dashboard, Ed Walsh, our moderator, will pose those questions at the end. Depending on how much time we have. So if you'll get in your chat box and figure out how to do that, we'll try to answer your questions. This webinar is about our thought process about how to hold the BRF accountable to the community on a baseline of economic development. So we commissioned Loren Scott and associates to conduct an economic impact study of the BRF activities, but it also is to look at where we sit right now, and we're committing to the community that we're going to increase that baseline in the years to come. Dr. Scott is the author of Louisiana Economic Outlook. He provides a yearly overview of Louisiana economic status and forecast. He's done hundreds of studies over the years for individual businesses around the nation and North Louisiana, including organizations like the Port, Cyber Innovation Center, and Ochsner's LSU. He's the president and founder of Loren C. Scott and Associates, Professor Emeritus of Economics at LSU, the co-developer of the Louisiana Economic Outlook Forecast, and a member of the National Business Economic Issue Council and Economic Advisory Board of the United States Council on Competitiveness. Thank you, Dr. Scott, for your work on this project, and I'm going to turn it over to you after I thank my team, Courtney Bryan, Brian Williams, and of course, Jay Myers, for putting this all together and working with Dr. Scott to make it happen. So thank you, guys, and thank you, Dr. Scott.
Thank you, John, and I really appreciate being able to do this. It's been a fun study, and you've had a great staff to work with. They've been extremely helpful and made this go very, very smoothly. What we did in this study was do an economic impact of the BRF activities really on two geographic areas. One was Caddo Parish, and the other was the Shreveport-Bossier MSA, and that's primarily what we're going to focus on today. Those of you who aren't familiar with this term, metropolitan statistical area, you can see your area here on the map in the northwest corner. The Shreveport metropolitan area, Shreveport-Bossier metropolitan area is made up of Caddo, Bossier, Webster, and DeSoto Parish. Next slide, please. So what we did is we went to the four main units associated with BRF. One is the BRF proper and its business units. The other was the Intertech Park. Now, the Intertech Park has about 25 firms right now operating in it. The biggest of these being an outfit called Future State, which is a healthcare IT firm. This is also where the Biomedical Research Institute is, which is a research arm of the LSU Health Science Center. Then there are several other firms, as I said, about 25, 26 firms in this area. Then, of course, BRF has the Entrepreneurial Accelerator Program to help startup firms get capital and help them with their business plan and that sort of thing. There are several firms in this particular group, about 45 of them. These run the gamut. They're all the way from an outfit called Cyber Reef to the LSU, to the Shreveport Aquarium, and then to Louder Bakery. So it's all across the board, all different kinds of firms that are being aided here. And then you recall that the University Health the hospital was under the control of BRF from about 2013 to the latter half of 2018. BRF stepped in when basically nobody else was willing to do so, and really turned the operations of this hospital around. And then in latter part of 2018, this was turned over to the partnership of Ochsner's and LSU Health Sciences Center. So what we did, if you'll pop the next slide up, is that we went to each one of these units and we gathered data on how much they spend on construction spending, what their annual operating spending was. This was a very tedious process. Staff was extremely helpful in getting these data together. It was a very tedious process. It went across a lot of different firms, a lot of different kinds of firms. And so if you think about that corner of the state, that metropolitan area, if you think of that as the Shreveport-Bossier metropolitan area has been this big economic pond, what has happened is through BRF is you have this very large rock that has been dropped into that pond. And what the size of that rock is the amount of spending that you see here on this particular slide. But when that rock hits the pond, it also creates ripple effects to the sides, to the edge, all the way up to the edge of the pond. When the people who are working, who are receiving income at the BRF units, take their money, they will then go spend that at the car dealership or a movie theater or a restaurant, which creates new income there. And those people then turn around with that new income and spend it. It's what we economists refer to as the multiplier effect. And so what we did is we used our survey instruments to find out the size of the rock. Then we used something called an input-output table to measure those ripple effects. And so next slide, please. What we're able to do using this tool called an input-output table is we are able to measure the total impact, the rock plus the ripple effect, the total impact on business sales in the metropolitan area, new household earnings for citizens in this four-parish area, both the total number of jobs that we would find in this four-parish area that are there strictly because of the existence of BRF, and then we were able to estimate the amount of taxes and fees for local governments in the metropolitan area. So next slide, please. So here are the results. We did this for 2018 and 2019. Now again, 2018 was a year in which the LSU Health Sciences Hospital there was under the control of BRF. The numbers are extraordinary. They're very large. There are, as you can see, $799 million in new sales in the metropolitan area that were there because of BRF's efforts. Almost $500 million, $460 million in household earnings for citizens in the MSA there because of these efforts by BRF. Almost 10,000 jobs, 9,617 direct and indirect jobs in the metropolitan area there because of BRF's activities. And then we estimate 20 million in additional taxes and fees for local governments that came into their treasury, came into their coffers because of the activity, economic activity generated by BRF. Now, if you look at 2019, next slide, please. The numbers come down because the hospital is not under BRF anymore, but the numbers are still very significant. We're talking about $91 million in new sales for businesses in the MSA, $67 million in new household earnings for citizens in the MSA, 1,288 jobs in the MSA are there because of the activities created by BRF, and then about $3 million in additional taxes and fees for local governments in the area. Now, these numbers are smaller than the ones that you saw on the previous slide because the hospital's not in here. But you think about it for a minute. If the governor was to announce that he had a new unit coming to the Shreveport-Bossier area, and it was going to create $91 million in new sales, $67 million in new household earnings for citizens, and nearly 1,300 new jobs and $3 million new dollars in local government taxes and fees, I guarantee you that would be on the front page of the newspaper above the fold, and it would be the lead story on the evening news at night. So these are very, very impressive numbers. To kind of give you a reference for some of these numbers, that's $67 million in new household earnings is larger than the earnings of all the amusements, gambling, and recreation employees in Caddo Parish. So it is a very significant number. I know we toss around millions and billions all the time, but this kind of gives you a reference point for seeing how big this number is. Next slide, please. So not only were new jobs created, but these were very good jobs. The average wage of the jobs that were created was about $52,375. The average wage in the metropolitan area was $44,503. So what we're saying here is that the jobs created both through the direct and the indirect, through the direct and the multiplier effect, was 18% higher than the average wage in the metropolitan area. So if this is a brand new, say, textile firm that had brought in, which is the lowest wage industry in manufacturing, then you would end up with a much lower, you wouldn't be talking about high wage jobs. In this particular case, these are not only a lot of new jobs, not only 1,300 new jobs, but very high wage jobs as well. Next slide, please. Now, again, we talked about the direct and the indirect effect. The job, basically what our data show is that for every 10 jobs directly created by one of the BRF units, there are another 11 jobs created elsewhere in the economy through the multiplier effect. And we have a large table that shows that basically there were jobs created in about 20 different industries. But I thought I would just show you here that the top ones were the other services sector, which includes your repair services, your personal care services like barbershops and beauty parlors. The healthcare service, healthcare area was another sector that gained a lot of jobs. Retail trade, the real estate, rentals and leasing area, the construction firms, the what we call the restaurant industry, the food services industry, all did very well. These are some of the top firms that gained from the multiplier effect of BRF's activities. So as you can see, this is you are very fortunate to have in your community an outfit that is creating this level of economic activity. Shreveport's been struggling a bit since 2009, and things would have been much worse had it not been for the economic activity created by BRF. So that's a quick review of what our study showed. So again, thank you very much for getting to do that. And if you have any questions, we will talk about those when Dr. George gets through.
Well, thank you, Dr. Scott. Now y'all have heard Dr. Scott tell you how the BRF and its associated entities have been instrumental in creating high-paying jobs in over 20 industry sectors. What we wanted to do is sort of give you a feel about what the BRF's been doing and what we're going to do in the future. And so the future is what matters. And so we're going to give a high level outline of our goals. So when somebody asks, what does the BRF do? You can tell them in 3 words. We're going to start, we're going to recruit, and we're going to retain businesses. And so if anybody, after we, do this for another year says, what is the BRF doing? I think everybody in the city should be able to repeat those 3 words: start, recruit, and retain. Now, Dr. Scott's study is now a baseline for the BRF. And so you're going to, our performance, and we're going to be doing this every year. We're going to be having Dr. Scott come in periodically to have a third party look at what we're doing so he can report back to you, and it's just not us telling you how great we are. We think this is important to be accountable. This is important for our city, and we're going to put the kind of pressure on ourselves to make sure that we live up to your expectations. And so let's go to the next slide and talk about a few of the things that we have going on in the BRF. And of course, if you're following the BRF, the CMIT, we're doing this construction. We should be finished in 2021. It's a $19.5 million project. The Center for Molecular Imaging and Therapy is on the corner of Kings Highway in Mansfield. We encourage all y'all to come down and see it. I think it's going to be a beautiful building. And if you're coming in from west from I-20, it's going to be one of the first things that you see. And hopefully it gives a new look to Shreveport. We're going to be cleaning up that whole piece from where CMIT sits all the way to where the old El Chico's used to be. So I think it's going to be fun to watch that, and we're going to try to improve that whole corner there. Next slide, please. Starting, everybody's familiar with what's going on with EAP. We're extremely proud of what we've done over the last 5 years. You have seen, most of these jobs are EAP jobs that Dave Smith and his group have put together. You can see the photo of the wall entrepreneur achievement. We have about 55 companies that have launched in North Louisiana because of EAP's help, and we're going to continue to fill that wall up. When we started this, we arbitrarily came up with 100 companies in 10 years, in 10 a year. So we're on track with the 10 companies on the wall. That's not all the companies we help, but we have a criteria that you have to make the wall. And so we've probably helped fund in some which way about 70 companies. We've actually, to get those 70 companies, we've looked at over 1,000 ideas. And so that group is working extremely hard to find these deals to get on the wall. And I know y'all probably heard, in funding those deals and organizing the angel funds and other organized capital, we've brought in more than $103 million of organized capital to help these companies get started and stay in Shreveport. And I will tell you that they're doing a phenomenal job because startups are risky. They've been able to retain about 90% of the companies that we've started. So we're very proud of that. Next slide, please. I know quite a few of y'all have been involved in helping us with this next initiative. And we're pleased to announce that that we've hired Ryan Culp to be the leader of Shreveport Next. We're going to recruit small to mid-sized high growth companies with revenues between 5 and 500 million from across the country to relocate or build new facilities in the Shreveport-Bossier MSA, bringing new jobs, taxable property, payroll, and revenue. Our target industries are advanced manufacturing, information technologies, life science, aerospace, aviation, warehouse, and distribution. Shreveport's next goal is to meet with the leaders of 100 companies per year in these industry sectors to promote the region's assets and help companies establish facilities here. And we're looking forward to collaborating and partnering with local economic development entities to move all these activities forward. I just got back from Chicago, probably our first company that we're going to be bringing back to Shreveport. It's a software company, and it's not a lot of folks. It's about 16 people, but it has about $3 million worth of revenue. And those are the kind of things that happen. Ryan has met with 10 companies so far since August, and we have 6 NDAs that we're working right now. So these things might be small, but we believe that it's going to bring a synergy to Shreveport like we've never seen before. And hopefully when we start changing the culture and we start promoting these small businesses, that large companies will come. So that concludes our presentation. I didn't talk about the retention part, but as since y'all are all on the webinar today, y'all are our ambassadors for the BRF. I hope that y'all start talking about starting companies, recruiting companies, and retaining companies. Y'all all know that we help retain LSU here in the hospital, and I think we did a good job. But what you may have not heard is there's a handful of companies that we've helped, with evaluations, expansion, anything that you think a company needs. We have services in this town now that can help retain our companies. So it's up to you to help refer people to us. That's how we get our business. And so, a few of those, Jurisdiction Online, Check, APS, those are companies that we help. And we're not limited to helping for-profit companies. We've had the aquarium in here to help them with their ongoing issues. We've had Cyport in here that we gave them another new look and did their financial modeling for them, reported to their board to help them be successful. And of course, Community Renewal came in here. So we even not-for-profits, if they're part of our city, we're willing to help them with our services. And I encourage you to go to our websites to see what we're actually doing. This is an overview of our baseline and where we're going. And I hope y'all enjoy this. But if you'll go to our websites, you'll see a little bit more detail of where we're taking the BRF. So thank you very much. That concludes my part of the webinar. And Ed, if you could field some of these questions for us, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly, sir. All right, our first question is for Dr. Scott. Dr. Scott, you mentioned in 2019 that BRF entities created nearly 1,300 direct and indirect jobs in the Shreveport-Bossier MSA. How many of those were direct and how many were indirect, and what is the difference?
Well, the direct number was somewhere in the neighborhood of 615, and then the indirect was about 674. You remember I said it's about a 10 to 11 ratio there. And so the 614 is the number of people that are working at the BRF and its different companies that John talked about. That's what we call the rock. Now, I will tell you that our estimates are very conservative estimates. And the reason is because that 614 includes the people who responded to our survey. There are a few firms out there that are under BRF's umbrella, which for all kinds of reasons, part of it being COVID, we were not able to get data. But that 614 refers to the people that work directly under the BRF umbrella, and then the 674 number refers to the jobs that were created in restaurants and car dealerships, the healthcare sector, construction, through the ripple effect when that rock hits pond.
Dr. Scott, I have another question for you. Can you give us examples of BRF-associated entities that were a part of this study?
Well, I mentioned some when I was talking about, I think, the second slide, but say, for example, under the EAP Entrepreneurial Accelerator Program, you have a wide range of firms. They're all over the place. An outfit called Cyber Reef. John mentioned the Shreveport Aquarium was under that. Louder Bakery was under that. If you look at there's a number of firms, about 25 or so, that are in the tech park, and they include a couple that are very healthcare oriented. One is the Biomedical Research Institute, which is, there are about 56 labs there, I believe, where they're doing all kinds of research in the healthcare area. You have Future State, which is a healthcare tech firm. You have Alpha Sigma, which is a pharmaceutical manufacturing firm. So that kind of gives you a taste of the kind of firms that are housed under the BRF umbrella.
Dr. George, this next question is for you. How will BRF work with existing economic development partners at the local, regional, and state level?
Well, so let's take the state LED. Don Pearson just asked me to be on the LED Corporation board. I'm sure he did that to help educate me on how LED functions in the state. I went down there and met his staff. They were very helpful. They gave me a few tutorials on the side. And so I think that we're going to have a healthy relationship with Don. Of course, he's from Bossier. I know his wife and family, and I think we'll be able to get along with them just fine. The regional would be NLEP, and we've always been supportive of NLEP. Adam Johnson over there, who's their chairman now, is a good friend of mine. Steve Scrivanis, who is the past chair of the BRF, and Graham Walker, both are on the search committee for their new hire, and we're very supportive of them and very supportive of the effort. We think that is a needed entity. It's one that, like all the locals, that will be all, if we work together, we need every dime and every available man to get this economic development initiative off the ground. And of course, the local, we formed a partnership with the port, and so Eric England over there has been very helpful, and we're in the process of finalizing our agreements. So we're looking forward to being a partner with Eric and trying to bring entities to him. For example, a perfect example is Via Energy, which was actually found by NLEP, asked us to help because we're better with startups than or we have more resources to help them. And the port is going to be the actual location of Via Energy, which is a methanol plant. And we've raised them $3 million to try to help them get their soft costs done so they can go out to market and try to raise their $120 million so they can start their facility build and construction at the port, which then Eric, has given them all sorts of incentives. He's helped them with $350 million worth of bonds. It could be a real, it's not a lot of employees. It's, between 75 and 100, but it's the idea of having a port there. A plant there that utilizes the river. We'll be doubling the river traffic, which then when we have double the river traffic, then the Corps of Engineers is going to pay a lot more attention to the river. We're going to have a lot more activity out there, and more people will be interested in using, probably driving some of the barge costs down because they're, having barges coming up and down. Just all sorts of synergies that I'm looking forward to working with the port on. And our local, the Shreveport and Bossier mayors, I've known Low Walker forever. And we work fine together, and they have their organizations, Mayor Perkins, and we're not going to have a problem with working with them. Brandon Fell and I talk all the time. Rocky at Bossier, we know each other well. So none of these things are going to be any kind of a problem. And even CIC, Craig invited me over to be a judge at Strike Works, and he's got a great thing going over there, and we're going to continue to be supportive of that. This is not a competition. It's a competitive kind of thing. We need to work together to bring as much activity into this area as we possibly can if we want to save our lifespan.
Dr. George, we have a question about BRF's latest initiative, Shreveport Next. How many jobs are you looking to actually bring to the city, to the area?
Ryan Culp will probably be the best one to do that. The way I look at it is right now we need every job we can get. So I'm digging as deep as I can if it's one job or if it's 500 jobs. So if you look across the board and you think that, this is sort of what I understand from Ryan and the numbers that we can expect from the next group is a consulting firm that we hired that helped set all this up, is that, in this mid-range market, we're looking, the average company's going to be probably, 10 to 20 people. All right. Because it could be anywhere from 10 to 50 is probably going to the mid-side range. So if we look at 100, we're hoping to get 20 companies in here to look at Shreveport. Of 20, we think we can land 4. So we're looking at 200 a year. Now, what I'm hoping is that once we start this process and we get synergies, that we will land something bigger, and it will help NLEP go after some of the larger markets. And so these things just are going to take efforts to get the synergies to work. And it's an intangible you can't see unless you have a lot of vision. And but that in fact, that's why we have Loren Scott here. We're going to be able to tell you exactly how many jobs we brought in, how many people we brought in, because now we set the bar.
Gentlemen, that is it for our questions.
Well, thank y'all very much. I appreciate it. Hope everybody stays safe with COVID. Let's get through this third wave and get back to business shortly.
I'll say amen to that.
Thank you, Dr. Scott.
Thank you, John.